A cadet laughed at her ancient Earthblade, then realized it was cutting. Beginning. The training yard of the Orbital Academy buzzed with the usual clash of synthetic weapons and the humming whine of energy shields. Holographic instructors flickered at the edges of the sparring grounds, their voices cool and sharp as they corrected posture, stance, and focus. Young cadets, some barely out of adolescence, wore the polished uniforms of the Galactic Defense Corps, each one striving to earn their stripes in a galaxy always at war with itself. Cadet Lyra Cashin stood at the edge of the yard, her long braid of dark hair hanging over her shoulder, her weapon cradled carefully in her hands. Unlike the shimmering plasma blades or pulse staffs her classmates wielded, Lyra carried something that made her peers roll their eyes, an old, battered sword. Its steel was scratched and pitted with age, its hilt wrapped in worn leather, the blade itself bearing marks of repair across centuries. It was, to them, little more than scrap metal. "Seriously, Cashin," sneered Cadet Horvath, a broad-shouldered recruit from the methane-breathing colonies. His voice carried across the sparring ground, drawing attention. "What's that? Did you pull it out of a museum bin?" Several cadets laughed, even the usually stoic Mara Synn covering her smile with a gloved hand. Lyra didn't flinch. She ran her thumb along the flat of the blade and said quietly, "It's from Earth." That only drew louder laughter. "Earth," Horvath barked. "That backwater's been a husk since the ocean's boiled. The last thing worth salvaging, there was probably dust. And you're waving around, what? A stick of rust?" The others laughed again. Lyra lifted the blade, the light from the orbital dome catching faintly on its edge. She said nothing. The instructor hologram chose that moment to call for sparring pairs. By ill fortune, or perhaps deliberate pairing, Lyra found herself facing Horvath. The circle widened, cadets muttering bets under their breath. Horvath activated his plasma staff with flare, its humming glow reflected in his gleaming visor. He gave her a grin. "I'll try not to cut your antique in half." Lyra's knuckles tightened on the leather hilt. The match began. Middle. Horvath lunged first, his plasma staff sweeping in a wide arc. Lyra sidestepped, her sword raised, and the staff's energy hissed as it passed. The onlookers expected her weapon to shatter at first contact. But when Horvath swung again, this time in a downward strike meant to end the fight quickly, Lyra raised the earth blade. The steel met plasma. Instead of melting or fracturing, the old weapon held firm. Sparks flew where the energy licked against the metal, and for the first time, Horvath's grin faltered. "What?" Lyra moved with sudden precision, her blade darting in under his guard. A clean slice grazed the staff emitter. Horvath stumbled backward, eyes wide as his weapon flickered and sputtered. The cadets around them gasped. "That's impossible," Mara whispered. Horvath snarled and reignited the other end of his staff. He struck again, faster this time, using both ends of the weapon in a whirling storm. But Lyra moved as though guided by instinct. Each strike was turned aside, the sword ringing with a resonance unlike any synthetic alloy. Every parry seemed sharper, more deliberate, until Horvath's strikes grew wild. And then it happened. Horvath overextended. Lyra stepped in, her blade whispering past his defenses. With a metallic hiss, the edge of her sword cut clean through the staff shaft. One half of the weapon clattered to the ground, its plasma core extinguished. The training yard went dead silent. Horvath stared at the broken remains in disbelief. His weapon was a pinnacle of modern combat tech, designed to withstand almost anything. And yet Lyra's ancient blade, an object everyone had mocked, had cut apart as if slicing through cloth. He took a step back, sweat beading on his forehead. For the first time, his mocking grin was gone. The holographic instructor flickered forward, its synthesized voice colder than ever. Match ended. Cadet Lyra Cashin, victory. But victory was not what the other cadets were murmuring about. They were staring at the sword. Revelation. Later, in the quiet of her bunk room, Lyra traced the blade's edge by lamplight. She could still hear Horvath's voice in her head, the laughter of the cadets, then the silence when they saw the blade cut. She had always known this weapon was different. It had belonged to her grandmother, who claimed their family lineage stretched back to soldiers of Earth, long before the planet was abandoned. She remembered her grandmother's words. "This sword remembers. It carries the weight of all who wielded it." But she had thought it was just an heirloom, something symbolic. Now, after the day, she knew the truth went deeper. A knock came at her door. Mara Synn stepped inside cautiously, her usual composure shaken. "That wasn't normal," Mara said. "That thing cut through military-grade alloy. Do you realize what you're carrying?" Lyra said nothing. Where did you even find it? Mara pressed. My family's vault. It's been passed down for centuries. Mara hesitated, then lowered her voice. There are rumors about weapons from the old wars. Relics forged not just with metal, but with resonance. Technology humanity lost when Earth burned. Some say they were alive in a way. Lyra ran her fingers along the hilt. She could almost feel a thrum beneath her touch. Like a heartbeat. Alive, she echoed. Before Mara could answer, the intercom blared. All cadets report to Command Hall. Immediate briefing. Rising conflict. The Command Hall thrummed with tension as Admiral Corrin addressed the cadets. His silver uniform shimmered under the lights, his one cybernetic eye gleaming as it swept the room. Cadets, our orbital perimeter is under imminent threat. Raiders from the outer belt have broken through the defense grid. They carry weapons of unknown origin, powerful enough to cleave our shields like paper. Murmurs rippled through the cadets. The defense corps is mobilizing, but this is no drill. You will see combat sooner than expected. Lyra's hand tightened on her sword. When the alarm klaxons wailed an hour later, the cadets were deployed. Fighters streaked into space, defense cannons blazed, and boarding pods slammed into the orbital station. The halls filled with the thunder of boots and gunfire. Lyra found herself side by side with Mara and, ironically, Horvek. The cadets fought through the corridors, pulse rifles spitting energy bolts. Yet the raiders' weapons burned through walls and armor alike, wielded by towering figures in crude exosuits. It was chaos. Horvek cursed as his pulse rifle's power pack overheated. These things are tearing us apart. One raider, armed with a jagged blade that glowed with unstable energy, charged down the hall. It raised its weapon, and Lyra stepped forward, drawing her earth blade. The raider laughed in a guttural tongue. To him, her weapon looked like nothing. Then steel met alien alloy. The sound was deafening, metal shrieking against metal. Lyra's sword cut to the raider's weapon, severing it in a single stroke, before burying itself deep in the exosuit's chest. Sparks exploded. The raider collapsed, smoking. Horvek and Mara froze. The cadets around them stared. The old blade shone faintly now, its edge humming with a strange light. It pulsed in time with Lyra's heartbeat. More raiders came. Lyra moved like a storm, her blade carving arcs of silver through the smoke. Each strike cut through weapons, armor, even the walls themselves, as if the station itself yielded to the blade's memory. The cadets rallied behind her. For the first time, the raiders faltered. Climax. The battle raged toward the reactor core, where the raiders sought to cripple the station entirely. Admiral Corrin himself led the defense, but even his advanced armaments buckled under the raiders' strange weapons. When Lyra arrived, the Admiral's cybernetic arm was half-severed, his forces dwindling. The raider commander towered above them all, wielding a monstrous blade that radiated with stolen power. Lyra stepped forward. The commander laughed at the sight of her ancient weapon. Again, someone dared to laugh. But when their blades met, the laughter died. The commander's weapon cracked under the earth blade strike. With a roar, Lyra pressed forward, every swing echoing with the strength of her ancestors. Memories flashed in her mind. Soldiers on muddy battlefields, knights under burning skies, warriors who had carried the blade across centuries. Their resolve became hers. With a final cry, she drove the sword into the raider commander's chest. The weapon split the exosuit apart in a blinding burst of light. The commander collapsed, lifeless. The remaining raiders fled. Silence fell over the ruined reactor chamber. Smoke and sparks drifted. The cadets stared at Lyra, their faces pale. Admiral Corrin, wounded but unbowed, stepped forward. He regarded the sword with something between awe and fear. That weapon, he rasped, is more than steel. It is history. It is power. And now it is yours. Ending. In the days that followed, the raiders retreated to the outer belt, licking their wounds. The orbital academy became a fortress, and Lyra Cashin's name spread like fire. No one laughed at her sword anymore. Instead, whispers followed her through the halls. The blade of earth, the living steel, the memory of humanity. Horvek, once her loudest mocker, now nodded respectfully when they crossed paths. Mara often walked at her side, offering quiet counsel. Even Admiral Corrin treated her with a wary deference reserved for legends. Late at night, Lyra sat alone with the blade across her knees. She traced its edge and whispered, "Were you really?" And though the sword gave no voice, she thought, just for a moment, that she felt it answer, not with words, but with memory. The memory of every warrior before her, the memory of Earth itself. And she knew, whatever war awaited, the blade would cut a path through it.